Welcome to a Friday Reads, where I talk about what I've read, what I'm reading, and what I hope to get to next. If you're new here, these happen pretty much every Friday, unless it makes sense for there to be a TBR video or a wrap-up. And I also usually talk about any books that I have hauled for the week, because sometimes I can't help myself. I buy a book or two from my local bookstore. It just happens. So let's get into it. Like most months, I have this huge TBR that I'm really excited about, and I start a lot of things and don't finish too many things. So I think I started 5 or 6 things, but I have finished 2, so at least I finished some things. One I did start last month, but we're calling it a win. And the first one I'll talk about is the Patreon buddy read, and that is We Are Satellites. We're switching things up on the Patreon. We used to do monthly book clubs, but now we do monthly buddy reads, and I make a spoiler reaction vlog and put in a bunch of cat content. Because if you don't know, I have 2 very adorable cats. They're just great, and my Patreon is to help fund their prescription cat food and their vet visits, because they are old now. They are 14 and 16, and they require some extra funds. So if you are at all interested in this book, my spoiler thoughts, that's how you can find it, and it's the best way to support me and the channel. But we picked We Are Satellites, so now we're just going to talk about this book, which I first heard about from Jessi at the Bookish Mom, Rachel from Shades of Orange, and Monica from Mooney Reads. And these 3 women all have similar sci-fi taste to me, and we're all gushing about it, so I had to pick it up. It was also one of those 2021 releases that I hadn't gotten to yet. Ooh, Shannon from That's So Paul was also talking about it. So 4 people who I have similar reading taste with were raving, so I picked it up for this book club, and everyone was right. So this is near future social soft sci-fi, which is something I would recommend to anyone who's always nervous about getting into the genre, because it's pretty familiar. This is contemporary setting. I don't even know the year, but it feels very now. And you follow these 4 members of a family. You have these 2 moms, a son, and an adoptive daughter who has seizures. So these are the 4 perspectives, and they are all adjusting to a time period where suddenly there are these things called pilots, which are basically these augmentations you can have through surgery that let you be really good at multitasking. Like, you could read a book while watching TV and actually get 100% of both input. So it's a really exciting piece of technology, but what then ends up happening is you see what happens when people can't get the pilot or don't choose to get the pilot, and how it kind of becomes not just a fad, not just a thing you could have, but a necessity. And how that messes with the family dynamics, as everyone has their own relationship to the pilots, and what that does on kind of a more like national scale. I really loved it. I loved how comfortable and familiar this family and their lifestyle felt to me. Like, they had family game nights, and they had all of this internal drama. I'm a sucker for those type of things. And I also like sci-fi that discuss these type of topics of like, what would happen if? And it's not like perfect, but I had a really fun time, and there were a lot of moments where I was like, please no. Oh my, I am concerned, which I always love books that get that reaction from me. I'm really glad we picked it for this month, because I have no clue when I would have gotten to it, you know, those never-ending TBRs. Another one I finished is for Jess Owen's nonfiction book club, Caste. I listened to this on audio, so I started it last month and finished it early this month. And this is, I don't know how to best describe it. It's a nonfiction, and it's this person's thesis is that America has a caste system that we never call a caste system. And then she spends the book describing what a caste system is, and comparing our system, our hierarchy system in America, a caste system, to the caste systems of Nazi Germany and India. So it was really eye-opening in some ways, and in other ways there were things I already knew because I've been reading a lot of nonfiction on a lot of these type of topics in American history. There's a lot of stuff that you'll read and you'll be like, I'm not shocked, but really? Like, that happened a lot. And what I really actually appreciated, and it's never on the page in this work, but it really helped me as someone who's biracial, who's mixed, who has gone through my entire life living in the United States being like, what box should I be filling on this form? Because if you're not in the United States, you have to fill out a form for almost everything. School, doctor's appointments, whatever. If you have to fill out a form, there's always 2 questions. What's your ethnicity? And it's usually either Hispanic or not Hispanic. That's your options for ethnicity. And then, what's your race? And these are separate categories. And there's no box that's just, I am other. Well, there is an other, but like, there's no box where you can just honestly say what you are. And I've always hated this, like, my entire life, because there felt like there was a right answer, but not like an honest answer, if that makes sense. And it's because classifying people by race and in this way is completely arbitrary and makes no sense. Like, but I mean, we already knew that, but like this really like gave me like an idea as to why this has always really bothered me. So yeah, those are the two that I have finished. I'm really excited for that book club. It's a heavy book. I am pretty good at detaching myself from a lot of heavy things when I am reading, especially if it's like a nonfiction and I'm prepared for it. But like, there are a lot of graphic descriptions, and the history of race in America is not without large problems and graphic, gross injustices to fellow human beings. Let's just put it that way. So those are things that I finished. What am I in the middle of? Well, firstly, I had to read Migrations for my local book club. So I have my copy here. I ended up putting a sticker on it because there used to be a sticker with the discounted price here, and when I took it off, it like kind of ripped the cover, so I just put a slightly prettier sticker. That was my solution. I'm about this far, so like halfway through, and I'm really liking it. This one is not classified as science fiction, so it's not, but it feels like near future dystopian-ish. We're like really in the mass extinction of species in America and the globe because of global warming. Specifically, there are like very few fish anymore and very few birds. So it's not now. I mean, we're in a mass extinction right now, but this is definitely decades ahead of that. We follow this woman who is half Australian, half Irish, and she's following potentially this last migration of these terns. And so she's trying to convince this captain of this fisher boat to take her on, even though she has no skills, and go from the Arctic to the Antarctic, because that's the migratory path. And there's obviously so much in the past of this woman. It's a first-person perspective, and she has so many repressed memories as we're reading her perspective on page. Like, there is obviously something that happened in her childhood, there's something that happened in her marriage, and there's definitely trigger warnings for suicide, ideation, extreme depression. As like very early, you find that out in this book, and I'm really captivated and intrigued. I've actually been immersion reading this, so listening to it and physically reading it at the same time, because it's just worked really well for that. I like audio when it's first person, especially like this narrator is really good. The scenery is very vivid. Like, the ocean was described as metallic. There were beautiful sunsets. This is also like a very visually pleasing, atmospheric read, and I don't know where it's gonna end, but it's one of those books that like I had no idea what it's about, and I'm like really enjoying my time, which this happens with my local book club pretty much every month. So that's been interesting. Oh yeah, the back says, "A dark past, an impossible journey, the will to survive." So that does kind of sum up what I've been reading so far. And then I went to the bookstore to pick up, which I already had an ARC of, so I started this as the ARC, but then I was like, I need the book, and the book was released on Tuesday, and that's The Inheritance of Orquídea Divina, which is a very shiny cover, but it's a very pretty cover, and I really like it, and I really like the naked hardback too. It's like really simple, but I really love like the burgundy and the spine. So I knew while I was reading the ARC of this, and I'll just put up a picture, that I really wanted to have the physical copy. You know, like some books you just really want to feel the pages, and it was that type of pacing for me. And this is about a family whose matriarch, Orquídea Divina, is about to die, and they are all given letters by her to come to where she is to get their inheritance. And so we meet a couple members of this Montoya family, and there is always the sense that in this valley, I think it was called Four Rivers Valley, that their matriarch is magical. She has some powers, but they never also think about it too much either. Like, it's fantastical, but it's also kind of very like, they don't think about it a lot. And you're watching a couple family members process their childhood and their current situations and the death of Orquídea. And where I'm at right now, things are picking up, and I cannot wait to read more. It has this thing where we go from Orquídea's upbringing to present day, so we flip-flop between those. And at first, I really liked Orquídea's parts more than present day, but now I have swapped. And I like both of them a lot because there's a lot of intrigue. There were deals that were made that she regrets making that we don't know about why she made those deals, how they happened, what's going to happen to her ancestors now that she's like passing on. It's really good, and like really beautifully written. Like, it evokes emotions from me. This is another one where like the way it's written, I really get a sense of the space I'm in, the nostalgia a lot of the characters feel, and just like the family dynamics. This is a lot like We Are Satellites, where like this feels like a real family with real drama, and I'm really, really liking it. I also just like, I can feel that the author put a lot of herself into it. She's also from Ecuador, like the main character. Well, there's a couple main characters, but there's one, Marimar, who moved to New York City. And Zoraida Córdova grew up in Ecuador and moved to New York City. And so I feel like there's definitely a lot, and I definitely noticed from Twitter when she was talking about this book and like publicizing it and things like that. I'm really enjoying it. Is that a shock? This is my third Zoraida Córdova, and I have liked everything she's written, so it's going great. All right, what are the other things that I'm reading? House of Chains. I started House of Chains. This is a very slow read. Very slow. And I have switched to purchasing the Kindles because I am immersion reading this too because I was able to find a copy of the audiobook because of a very lovely friend. Evie, what would we do without you? And I really like the audiobook while physically reading it. I don't think I could just do the audio. There's too many names and places that I'm unfamiliar with. But I've always thought that a lot of the imagery and the descriptions would sound really good, like if it was being read to me, and I was so right. It really helps with me getting bogged down in some description. I still have to pause sometimes and be like, wait, regroup and reread a passage or something. But it still goes way faster than when I read it on my own because someone is like helping me along, if that makes sense. And it's really made my experience way more enjoyable. Once again, in a Malazan book, I sort of know where I am, I don't know why I'm there, and I don't know why I care about it yet, but interesting things are happening. There were some interesting history reveals pretty early on in this one. I'm only in chapter 2, but I say that, and I've already listened to like 4 hours of it, so some pretty long chapters in Malazan. Like, it's a 1,000-page book with like 20-some chapters. So the chapters are quite lengthy in this one. If you like Malazan, I have a whole playlist on Malazan videos, spoilers for all 3 books I've read so far, and spoiler-free for the first 2. And I will probably be making a spoiler video for this one as well, because I do like gathering my thoughts with those videos. So that's my plan there, and I'm trying to think. I think there's one more book that I am currently reading, and this is 100 Years of War in Palestine, I believe is the title. There's an image here. Because, you know, after Caste, I needed another light nonfiction read. So, I've always, as a kid, learning about World War II and everything, like, there's like one line in American history textbooks, at least in my classes, where you learn about the creation of Israel as a state. And you're just like, you associate it with the Holocaust, because it did kind of happen near it. Like, the Holocaust and World War II happened, and a couple years later, there's Israel. But actually, like, they're connected, but that's not how, like, the way it's portrayed to you in the American school system is that this was, like, 100% a good thing, and that there were no issues. And even in the back of my mind as a kid, I was like, but what happened to the other people? And this story kind of takes you from 1917 to 2017, and you learn about different events in world history and how we got from there to here approximately through the lens of colonialism and imperialism. And I'm getting what I wanted from it, which is information and filling in this huge gap in my, like, global history knowledge, because I really, from school and just, like, Western culture does not talk about it in it that way. It's really, you're not talked about it, like, until recently. Like, we on the internet have been talking about it a little bit more, and, like, every 5 years we cyclically bring it back, but I have not formally taught myself things. So I'm learning about stuff, and it's anger-inducing and frustrating, and just very much like, I don't know. There was a lot wrong in a lot of the steps at the beginning. Like, there's just a lot of things that I don't even know how you morally rationalize some of the things that are done. My one slight negative for it, and I don't think it's the book's fault, I just think it's me not being as used to reading certain nonfiction texts, and that is sometimes there's just a lot of names, dates, and places, and I'm not good at keeping track of all those things, and sometimes I just get a little lost in trying to figure out who should I be focusing on, but that's not the nonfiction's fault. But in that way, it's a little bit more like learning history like I did in high school or college, where it's not about the narrative, it's about the facts and things like that. So that's not the book's fault. That's just me as someone who's just trying to keep track of all this information, because there's a lot to keep track of, a lot that I'm unfamiliar with. So I don't even have, like, frameworks to put things into, because we literally learn nothing about the Middle East in high school. Like nothing. I I learned in this book about the Ottoman Empire falling, and it's like, of course that had to happen. I remember learning all about the Ottoman Empire, but I never learned about what happened after it. It's like, it's crazy. It's crazy, like, history is really important, but, like, I think sometimes we spend times on parts of history that are not as important as others, and I think some of it's just, like, catch up, but I think most of it is just, like, textbooks and AP tests. Like, I don't know. I have some opinions and issues, but it's been an informative read, been buddy reading that with Judith, because we both have been wanting to read it, and it's kind of nice to talk to each other, and what's also interesting is Judith grew up in the UK, and so has a different, history background, what she was taught. And so it's interesting to see what gaps we both had and everything like that. So that's been fun. So now for the mini book haul. So I already showed you The Inheritance of Orquídea Divina. I almost bought the first 2 books in this series, but I held back. I just bought 1, even though I'm going to buy all 3, but I was just like, Angela, you need to not. And I bought Dawn by Octavia Butler. Look at this. This is stunning. All 3 books in this trilogy are going to have these stunning covers. I saw the second one, and the third one comes out in December. And it flops so nice. And I love Octavia Butler. I've read 6 of her works. The whole Pattern Master series, which I still haven't gotten a review up for, but I'm working on it. I promise I'm working on it. And Kindred. And so I think publication-wise, this is the next one up in the Xenogenesis files. Is that what it's called? I don't know. It's a Lilith's Brood novel, so I know approximately the premise. I'm pretty sure it has to do with human breeding for aliens. I could be wrong, but this cover is so pretty, and I love Octavia Butler, so I had to buy it because it was there, and I sometimes don't have self-control. And then I went to the used bookstore seller that's in my local bookshop, because sometimes there's some cool gems there, and guys. Look at this. I found my favorite edition of Midnight Robber by Natal Hopkinson. It was $2.50. $2.50. So there's a couple covers for this book. I have a review from it from last year when I read it last summer. And this is my favorite cover, with, like, Tan as a kid and Tan as the Midnight Robber, and the trees that I'm forgetting their names. There's an alien species that kind of live in these type of trees. These are pictures of some of them down here. This is one of my favorite science fictions that has a large barrier to entry because it's written in a Caribbean dialect. I think it's Trinidadi, and it is one of the few books where I'm like, you should really look up the trigger warnings. Like, there's some trigger warnings. You will be enraged and upset and maybe triggered depending on your life experiences, but you follow Tan as she has to adjust from her high-tech life to being at New Halfway Tree, which is a parallel world that does not have as much technology, and it's about her becoming a legend. And I love stories where people become legends. It's kind of a thing I like. And this also has a really cool narrative device, and I am always about cool narrative devices. And this is, I think it was written in 2000? I don't know, but I am so pumped. I read this first on Kindle, 2000. And I didn't have an issue with it on Kindle, but what's cool is in the physical copy, there's the narrative voice has a different font from the other one, and that wasn't in the Kindle. I'm just really excited, and I also just really like these editions. Hopefully I can maybe find some of her other works like this. But that's this video. And if you're new, welcome. And if you're always here, hi. You know how this works. You can comment anything you're reading, watching, doing this weekend. I have a busy weekend ahead of me. I have a friend's wedding, and I'm going to hang out with a friend and celebrate some positive news. It's going to be great. If you want to leave an emoji, I don't know. I have so many roses, because there's a roses on The Inheritance of Orquídea Divina, so leave a rose. If you just want me to know you're here and say hi, you can just leave a rose if you don't have anything to say. And like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.